What's going on, YouTube? This is Broman Clash, and back in the act once again. And this time, I want to talk about a topic that involves two things, and those two things are integration and equality. Some people actually think integration and equality are two of the same things. Well, let's put that to rest because honestly, integration and equality are two separate things. And some of you may say, like, that's obvious, Clash. Like, what's so not obvious about that? It's just that some people actually think that you know integration and equality are synonymous with each other, which in fact they're not. See, integration means that you just add something on, or you just add on, or you just put something else on just to make it look good or to function better. While equality, you actually sit down, you talk, and you actually function on a human to human basis, not on a superior basis trying to lower yourself down or inferior basis trying to raise yourself up. You talk as equals. You don't talk as, basically doing two as like, master, slave, or any of that bullshit. And some of you may say, like, how does this tie in with today's times, and how does integration tie in with what's going on in today's times, Clash? Like, tell us what's going on. Basically, let's put it like this. I actually saw like a bit of a news article that talked about how the way a judge in the South, a black judge, noticed that there was like a jury of white jurors, full of it, not a single black juror anywhere. And he halted the case because he felt like, wait a minute, why is it full of white jurors and this doesn't feel right? And especially when there's a law that stated that, hey, look, um, the person can have a juror of their own peers. And if the jurors happen to be not their own peers, then you're not going to get the intended result, which has been, the case since like the 1950s, even beforehand until like the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Then things get real interesting because now he's facing like termination because he stood up and said, "Wait a minute, this jury is not right," especially when it's not amongst his peers, and it's supposed to be diverse, not just solely white. And that gets on to another topic on. See, look, now that's an example of equality being challenged because equality is being challenged, and overall just looking at that instead of actually understanding and sitting down and realizing, like, wait a minute, now you're starting to see what's really wrong, and you want to solve it, but not solve it because you want to look good. And that's the thing. Equality doesn't try to look good or it's try to look pretty. That's just what it is. Equality. You just try to make things. You try to sit down and try to understand things, and you try to do things at a more understandable basis. But yet, with integration, it just looks good. It's not. That's what it is. It's just to make things look better than what it really is, or it's trying to make things look much more. How should I say? Much more prettier instead of just dealing with it on an equal to a realistic basis. Basically, think about it like this. It's a quote from Malcolm X. See, look, we got people in South Africa, that are going through apartheid, and then we got people here in America. See, here's the difference. They're just as racist in South Africa as they're here in America. But the only difference is the fact that in South Africa they practice segregation and they preach it, while America preaches integration while practicing separation. Basically, America doesn't practice what it preaches. And he goes on to say this: I have more respect for a man that lets me know where he stands, even if he's wrong, than a man who tries to appears as an angel, but it's nothing but a devil. Now, that was just a quote, even though I probably butchered some of the lines right then and there. But what he was basically talking about was how to wait in terms of integration. It looks good and it makes the world think like you're a better place or a better person, but in actuality, you're not because you're just trying to force a cooperation as opposed to just trying to sit down and understand. See, look, when it comes right down to equality, you actually sit down, you talk with people, you understand people. Keyword understand, because integration doesn't use understanding. like I mentioned before, it's just an atom. And if you want another form of integration, quote unquote, as opposed to equality, look at what happened, Missouri, Missouri University, where black students were actually being attacked and being racially abused by, white supremacists or students who were obviously racist, trying to do all this, do all this extra crap just so either to bring the whole thing about the whole black student movement down or to demoralize or dehumanize, black students in that particular context. Now, don't get me wrong, integration to a degree is good, but on surface value it looks good, but internally, if you realize like this, like the person, place, or country is not really doing things on an integrational basis or on an equal basis, because in equality you got to be equal, and being equal you got to understand. And if you don't understand, and yet you try to look good because you want to diversify yourself, then honestly you're practicing integration instead of equality. Then what happened with these students? They stood up. They said, no, enough is enough. I respect that, because honestly, when they did that, that showed off that they were not going to take it anymore. And when they did that, it also showed off that, hey, they were willing to fight back. They were willing to stand up and say enough is enough. They're standing on equal grounds. They were saying like, yo, enough is enough. That was them practicing equality, being as an equal. See, that college was just basically just, an integrationalist look. And another form of integration, let me finish before I get on to what another form of integration looks like. Now, when they were doing that, the president, Tim Wolf, I believe, Michael Wolf or Tim Wolf, stepped down because he couldn't handle the pressure of, a black student union, or, black students basically standing up and saying like, yo, enough is enough. Stop that. We getting picked on, we getting brutalized, we getting like ostracized, we're being like isolated because we're just different. And even when I saw this on the internet, and it was so funny because it showed up like a roll of white crayons, and on the caption it says, "Look at the diversity in my classroom." Because just because you are just the only black student in a whole white classroom, that doesn't make it diverse. You were just integrated into the classroom. That's essentially what happened in this college. And funny enough, that's just integration in a nutshell. It looks good on the surface, but internally, this might not be stable. Now, here's a big form of integration right here. And this is going to be like a bit of a bulk of my video. I want to talk about all lives matter. And that is just the new age or the modern day integrationist movement. Because honestly, what the hell was it doing? It was just right there just to dilute or to just keep things cool in the black movement, or Black Lives Matter, or the Black Liberation Movement. And it goes back to what Malcolm X was talking about, with coffee. And he used coffee as an example. He said, when you have coffee, it's hot, it's powerful, it's strong. But when you add a little cream, it starts to get weak. It starts to become cool. And then after you add too much cream, you don't even know if you add coffee anymore. That's why our movement should be just like coffee. Too black, too strong. Now, some of you may say, like, why are you calling Malcolm X for? And how does he tie in with, today's times, especially when he was more of a separatist? Well, let me tell you something. He was actually explaining how the way black people should defend themselves in an integrationalist, so-called integrationalist state. Now, think about it. All lives matter is the proverbial creed in the black struggle. They try to look good. They try to look like they care about integration. But let me tell you something. When Zachary Hammond got shot, remember that young white man that got shot? What was All Lives Matter then? When that young Native American woman was raped in police custody, what was All Lives Matter then? And when all these other people who were outside of the Afrocentric, background were getting brutalized, being hurt, being, overall being killed, where was All Lives Matter then? That's not equality. Because if All Lives Matter really mattered, then you would be talking about this. That's equal standing. You don't try to make all like certain lives matter more and then try to dilute the problem. That's what the old proverbial coffee with the cream is all about. Basically diluting the problem so it looks almost non-existent. Then once another problem arises after you were talking about integration, you don't talk about it. And then people realize like, yo, all lives matter is just bullshit. Hence why I support Black Lives Matter. Because at least they know the direction that they're headed. And then when it comes right down to equality, that's what real equality is. See, look, honestly, I will talk about, what happened to Zachary Hammond. I'm sorry, to his family that he lost his life. I really am, especially to that fucking officer. No, fuck that police officer, man. He should have been much more careful. Not even much more careful. He should have his fucking badge revoked, fired, and thrown in jail. And that young Native American woman, I'm sorry, what happened to you. I know sorry is not going to cut it, especially when you're experiencing that kind of trauma. Like, what's sorry going to do? That's the only thing I can say. And yet, when it came right down to it, and when I look at it, it's very sad because like not many people understand that integration is not the same as equality. When you integrate something, you just add something. It could be problems, it could be even more situations, or it could just be overall just another big catastrophe. You can yeah, that's like integration right there in a nutshell. Because you don't know what the hell you're integrating. But when it comes right down to equality, you actually sit down, you understand, and you actually know what you're getting yourself into. But with other people, people think like equality, integration. They're more than likely the same thing. I mean, integration means that you putting things in and you integrating different cultures. But let me put it like this, because some people actually think that integration is great. I mean, just because it has great in it doesn't necessarily make it, the holy grail. But with equality, you actually, like I mentioned before, you actually sit down, you actually speak, you actually talk, and you actually just listen. You actually understand. Key word, like I mentioned before, the key word is understand. Because in the integration, not many people understand the problem. But in equality, you understand the problem because you talk about it. Yet, not many people get the difference. But yet they think it's the same. And then if you want to know what the funny, like I mentioned back to Malcolm X, and when he mentions how the way America preaches integration but practices separation, that's not equality. I mean, you can even see in today's times how the way they treat refugees, how the way they treat people, how the way they treat immigrants, and how the way they treat people of color, how the way they treat poor whites, how the way they treat the homeless. Overall, you see integration in a nutshell. The only thing you see integrated is just more problems. You don't see sometimes majority of the time you don't see people looking at a homeless person trying to understand their struggle. You don't see a homeless person, and even worse, you're gonna have people that are gonna try to integrate themselves into the homeless struggle just so they can get more change. You know what I'm talking about? Those type of homeless people that will actually fake the funk, and those army veterans, those military veterans that fake the funk. They try to integrate themselves, quote unquote, into the struggle, quote unquote. Yet they never been into it. They never understood it. They never even tried to breathe this essence. That's one thing I cannot stand. Just a fake, a fake equalist, just a fake person that pretends that they care, but yet they don't. And also, I would like to give, I would also like to take this time out just to give my hopes, give my heart out to those who were bombed, not only in Paris, but also in Nigeria, in Yemen, in Palestine, Gaza, in Yemen, also in Beirut, those that experience, the atrocities of war, you know. I'm not like the type of integrationist kind of man that would just be like, yo, feel sorry for Paris. Nope, nope, no. I'll mention it, but on an equal standpoint, anything that goes on in the world that involves atrocities, my heart goes out to it so the people can survive and so the people can actually understand, can actually have a little bit of hope to keep on going, even when things look bleak. I'm not going to try to integrate or try to look cool in front of these people. I want to be hot, I'm going to be black, and I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be just like black coffee. No sugar, no cream. Listen to that song by Heavy D and the Boys. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Ah, yeah, that song is beautiful. But overall, what do you think? But overall, to be honest, that's what equality is, because equality is basically understanding where people are coming from. I want to keep on repeating it because a lot of people think like equality and integration are the same thing. They are not. Like I mentioned before, you can integrate many things, such as you can integrate problems, you can integrate situations, you can integrate the past, which could be tons of bad shit. You can integrate toxins. You can integrate a lot of things. Yet that's the thing. With integration, you do not know what the hell you're getting. But with equality, remember that equality. You understand you understand what's going on. Thus, you understand what is necessary and you understand what you need. Yet, people still think it's the same thing. But at the same time, what does it all mean? Equality versus understanding. I'm more of an equal kind of man. See, understand this. I understand some things, and some of the things I don't understand. And the things that I don't understand, I'm going to sit down and learn. Doesn't necessarily mean I'll do just so I could look cool. All right? I'm not an integrationist. I'm an equalist. I look at equality because equality requires understanding. And what does hip hop do? Knowledge, wisdom, understanding, having fun. Remember, understanding. If you understand the people, then you understand their struggle, thus making it equal. And that's the problem with some of these politicians, because they sound like integrationalists, not equalists. They're not trying to fight for equality. They're just fighting just so they can look good in front of the people, so they can round up more numbers. That's the thing you need to understand. And honestly, it's sad because there are people like that I know of. There are people like that you, the viewers, know of, that are like equalists. No, not equalists. You know, equalists in quotations, but they're more like integrationists, so they can look good in front of other people. And then they end up going crazy. They end up going insane. They end up losing many screws, and then they end up looking like that. Bang! I tried to integrate, but nothing goes great. That's the thing. Integration never really helped. Understanding, thus equality will. See, if you're equal with someone, there's no superior to inferior basis. It's on the same level. Sure, there may be some things that you know more than I do, but I'm willing to sit down and understand, thus learn what it's all about. And that's beautiful. That is legitimately beautiful. But yet, it's just sad because, like I mentioned before, people think equality and integration are the same thing, and it's not. It really isn't. If you want to fight for equality, then do it. If you want to fight for integration, then shit, then just integrate into another movement, motherfucker. But honestly, like I said, I prefer equality over integration because that's where it's at. And truth be told, what do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Like, leave your opinions, be it positive or negative. But as long as you be respectful and you understand where I'm coming from, then I'll say, okay. But if you don't, then that's the thing I gotta say is on you. With that, YouTube, I say this is Broman Class signing out one. Hope you have a great morning or afternoon or evening, depending on which which part of the world you're in. Hope you have a good one. Later.